Welcome to the Microdosing for Healing podcast. I'm your host, Casey Garrett, and together we'll be discovering and learning from inspiring voices of healers, medicine keepers, and visionaries. Every episode, we'll explore the world of health, vibrant wellness, and natural medicine for a new era of human society. Welcome to today's episode. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. So this week, I'm really excited to talk to and about one of my favorite subjects in the world. Those of you guys who are in our community already know this, dreams. So we are here this week with one of the world's foremost expert on dream work, dream incubation, and dream guidance, Machiel Klerk. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I've been looking forward to this and to get to know you a bit better and have this conversation about dreams and whatever else unfolds.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I wanted to share with everybody a little bit about your bio, which will lead me to my first question for you. So Machiel is a licensed mental health therapist, international speaker, dream worker, author, and social entrepreneur. While obtaining a master's degree in counseling psychology, he studied Jungian psychology. Machiel has been vocationally guided by his dreams, leading him to found the Jung Society of Utah and the online organization Jung Platform, which is gorgeous. And I highly suggest everybody check it out. My first question, I loved reading a bit about you and in the book about how your dreams led to your vocational path. So often I talk to people who, in their course of our microdosing practice, work with mushrooms journeys, they see their future path and vocation laid out for them in a journey. And it's wild how many people, when they look back 10, 15, 20 years ago, they can see the thread of that. So can you share with people about the original dream you had that led you to Jung Platform?
I will do that, but I first want to respond to the session, the notion of when people go on a journey, move through any form of any journey, but the mushrooms, and that the similarity is that a journey is also a manifestation of the imagination, or it's the generation of another world. And at night, you're also in a dream in a world, and which is just another way that the imagination manifests. So whether it's the mushroom journey, the nighttime dream, or a daytime dream, or an out-of-body experience, these are all worlds that we find ourselves in. And so they all have the same underlying qualities. For example, in the mushroom journey and in the dream, the soul is not just anticipating on what happened yesterday in the dream of responding to it, but it anticipates the future. And just like the rose seed becomes a rose, our own soul wants to become itself and starts imagining its future self. And by listening to our dreams or other forms, we can see in which direction the soul wants to flow. And when we follow it, we come in the flow as well, and life turns out for the better usually.
Beautifully said. Absolutely. I was struck reading your book, how many commonalities there are between mushroom practice and dream incubation. Absolutely.
Yeah. I've reflected on that too. So maybe we'll talk about it further. But there's many. It's very similar.
Beautiful. Yeah. Can you share a bit about the specific dream you had that laid out Jung Platform for you?
Yeah. So in the dream, I'm floating above the lake of Zurich in Switzerland, where and I see Carl Jung's house. He lived at the lake of Zurich, and he is building a square concrete platform attached to his yard in the lake. and he's creating the platform, and then he's putting some beams on it that he rearranges to make it a little bit more cozy. And then he sits in a chair and reads a book. And I see all of this. And then almost like I'm watching a movie that comes to a standstill, and Jung and the platform disappear. And you see it go away. And then a voice behind me says, now you have to draw it, identical to how it was. And I think, I can't draw. I find myself with a pencil in my hand and make a line. And then I wake up. And so that was the dream. And I took it as a suggestion to create a platform for Jungian psychology and psychology like Jung that takes into account other worlds, an unconscious or another world in the indigenous culture, or a spiritual psychology or soul psychology. And that was where it all started.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. The other thing I was struck by reading your story was we both lost our fathers in childhood. I was 7 years old when I lost my father. And so often in dream work or, I guess mushroom practice, our through line is the wound, and in working with the people, it's often their through line that it's defined our lives. And I've heard you speak about that too, where it's not things you would wish in a lifetime, but you see that it was the defining moment that laid out your path before you. So I'd love for you to share, because it's so resonant with so many in our community, of how your father's passing led to your exploration of dream work.
Yeah, my father died due to an heart operation that didn't go well. I was 10 years old, and it came still as a shock. And my family, my culture was not good at dealing with the grief of such a loss. So we didn't grieve well. We didn't talk about it, and so I not only lost my father, which is, as you know, very painful at any age, but at that age, and I loved my father a lot. But I also my emotional life got squeezed in, because there was just no room for dealing with suffering, with pain, and how to engage with the darker side of life. And I postponed, or it was postponed, to engage with that to my early 20s, in which I stumbled upon the works of Carl Jung. And being in a dark pit, it gave me a lifeline out of the pit on both how to better deal with pain and suffering, a changing worldview, but also it gave ideas and suggestions on how to look at your dreams. And when I started to look at my dreams, I was at one hand shocked about where I really was in my life and the somewhat destructive behavior I was displaying. As that I saw, it's also anticipating the future. And I have these characters who are excited and are engaged and are passionate, and I could align with a new direction that helped me get out of the pit, and my life changed radically for the better.
Powerful. Yes. Yeah. I so appreciated that. And also the deep healing that you found in the loss of your father through reconnecting with him in dreams too was really profound. So yeah, thank you so much. So
yeah, and as you know, I think it's a really important part that ancestors seem to visit us in dreams. Before that, I was raised in a Christian tradition that your father lives in paradise. Well, that didn't truly resonate. I couldn't imagine that, and having the direct experience of connecting with deceased loved ones in the dream is also a radical change of a worldview, because at once it's the other world where they live is actually not some distant place. They're here. Just we don't see them. but they're still here, and we can build a different relationship with them. So even that relationship could be reestablished. And I think many people can sometimes feel, oh, I can feel the presence of grandfather or my mom or dad. And so that in itself was also very healing and gave a radical different way of being in the world. And from that also came ideas of, oh, when I die, what might be important? And that end point really defines the journey. Wherever you put your endpoint on the map, that will start defining the journey that you live. And so my journey also got an endpoint and some meaning to it. And meaning is also really important to walk around in this world.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. So, something we have, especially lately, I hear people who are coming to microdosing practice is they're drawn to reconnect with their spirituality. And they're like, I was raised with religion, but I never resonated with it. Or they have a negative association with it, but they're drawn to their spirituality. They can feel they have their intuitive abilities, but they feel like they're kind of wrestling with their mind often. So a lot of the practice is helping them cultivate practices to allow spirit to connect with them. Right. And sometimes it's adding things to one's life, and sometimes it's subtracting things from one's life that help promote that connection. So I loved in your book how practical you are about the things you can do and really utilizing your dreams as a tool in your real life to support your real life, to support your relationships, your vocation. So if someone is new to dream practice, can you lay out kind of some of the recommendations and the 5 steps that you recommend?
Yeah. So I would say start with an attitude of curiosity. You don't have to believe anything. It's really aimed at having your own experience. So there it also is different from dogmatic traditions where there is something you have to believe. This is really aimed at don't believe, but create experiences, situations that can inform you to build your own worldview and your own experience. And so dreams are revelations in your own psyche. So that way it becomes your own spiritual practice, or can become your own spiritual practice. So curiosity is a good ingredient. And then very often make it a little playful and fun. So you can say to the dream or to some figure in the dream or behind the dream, or you can say, gosh, I've been listening today to a podcast and I want to try this technique. And to be honest, I don't know if it works or doesn't work, but I like to try. So almost treat it as if you are meeting an old wise woman and talk to her or an old wise man and talk to him in the way that you really feel. And then you can wait for a dream to come to you, and the dreams will. There's different dreams, but they will. When you start looking at them, you will start seeing how they reflect either where I am in my life or where I'm going, or the visitation of an ancestor, or there are multiple variations of dreams. But in dream guidance, the technique I laid out in dream incubation is that you can ask your own soul a question before you go to sleep, and then you have a dream as a response. And so you want to you want to feel into what you want to ask, develop a good question. Step 2, engage in some form of a ritual, signal to the dream that you're interested. Go to bed and make sure you write down the dream when you wake up. And then there are suggestions on how do you work with the dream once you have it. So those are the 5 steps. And I distillated it really from my own experience and looking at almost any other tradition than the Western tradition has some form in which you can ask the other world a question and get an answer. And this is just a summary of that, and it's very practical. And even Harvard did a study in this, and it went into scientific journal that it works really well with people that ask a question that's emotionally relevant or of medical nature.
Love it. Thank you. I want to get your take on something. So it's very common. We do 6-week immersion programs in our microdosing program, and lots of beginners to mushroom practice. And it's very common for people to begin sleeping more deeply, to dream for the first time in years. Some people dream for the first time, have dream recall ever. And that's fascinating to them. But we notice similar themes and threads come up. And I just wanted to get your take on this. So one of them is we see very frequently is childhood dreams. So people see they're in the dream as an adult with their younger self. That happens so frequently. The other thing we have seen often is we call them, because it's just kind of a made up thing, we call them reclamation dreams, where it's pieces and parts of themselves or interests or threads that they left behind come back into their current life. And then the last one we see commonly is conversations with lost loved ones, deceased ancestors, and the ability to reconnect and often have conversations and connections that they wish they could have had. So those are the 3 things we see. So I'd love to any reflections you have on them.
Well, it's beautiful, and I love that this practice of the microdosing really gets a person in touch with the depths of their own being, and the depths are naturally already there. But in our culture, we have digressed and are not well connected to our own self. Just like dream work is not a mainstream practice, and that this helps people to connect to dreams. That will do this for everyone that starts to engage with it. And I find it interesting that the specifics that you bring up, that the reclamation is almost like in many traditions. Also, what happens is just pieces of the soul come back, soul retrieval, and it seems to speed up that process that otherwise naturally would unfold, and it just helps a person, just an aid for a person to get there. And it makes sense because we lose all these certain qualities, and it's good to get them back. And that they revisit their childhood probably suggests that this group somehow reconnects with the child in them. The child in them probably went through some experiences, like my child got confronted with losing a father and then not talking about it, and feeling very lonely. And so still that lonely child walks around despite the many hours of work I've done it's still there. And also I need to ongoingly take care of the little boy. And I can imagine that these people could ask themselves the question, what does this child need? What are some of, and even ask the child, even in this reality, just, oh, young child, what do you have anything to tell me? Do you have anything to say to me? And then make sure that you take note of it, and then you can work with that part of yourself that most likely is wounded and needs the adult to take care of it. And otherwise, what we know is that little child is going to seek in the outside world people to take care of her or him. And there are some dangers to that, because if it finds the wrong person, or it too often leads to dysfunctional relationships. If we take care of it, it also helps our relationships better.
Good point. Yes, yes, absolutely. I would love for you to share. I loved hearing when this grabbed you, this passion grabbed you. You took that thread and you followed it with all your
Yeah.
heart, and so you have gone on quite a quest in your life, like a pilgrimage of a lifetime, exploring dreams. I would love for you to share with listeners some of the way different cultures and societies value dreams as more part of an essential part of their society.
Yeah, many cultures, especially indigenous cultures, dreams and the other world are just an integral part of their life, and they don't see a dream as somewhat like a switch on, switch off event at night, but as an ongoing parallel world where that coexists next to or in this reality. And so, the if you would dream about the little boy or the little girl, it wouldn't disappear when you woke up. It wouldn't be just a message that hey, you're little. There's a part of you that still needs connection and healing. That little part would still be living there in the dream world, and then you can build relationships with with those figures. So many of these traditions are far more relational and far less interpretive. So they don't ask so quickly the question, what does it mean? But far more, how can I be with this young boy? What would the young boy need? What can I do today to create a welcoming environment? And then you get a more relational quality to the other world or the ancestors or aspects, and this world, as a consequence, warms up, becomes a, a broader world, and you also are not alone in the world. You're surrounded by other figures who very often have an interest in you living an happy, fulfilling life. So, I was born in South Africa, so I worked with African indigenous healers, and they told me, "Oh, we don't have a word for intuition like you talk about, but we call it ancestor speaking." So they might say, "Oh, the little boy talks to me," and and I would say, "Oh, it's my intuition." Actually, it's little boy or the old wise woman or whoever speaks to me, and I call it intuition, but they say it's the other side. So those are uh, ways that especially the indigenous cultures work with it, and even around the world, you see a slight diminishing of the connection to the dream world because the rational mind has infiltrated uh, other cultures as well, and because it has so many things it does well, but what it doesn't do well is being connected to the depths of our own being, because it's not so measurable to have an ancestor in your dream or a little boy in your journey. But everyone that has had a journey, I've recently read it. People very often put their journeys in the top 5 of their most influential experiences in their life. And I have several dreams that are in my top 5, or at least my top 10.
Lovely. I am of Greek ancestry, so I personally want to hear more about your pilgrimage to Greece and that experience.
Yes, well, it's a great ancestry to have. It's a beautiful land, and so rich in culture, from of course Plato and Socrates to the tradition of Asclepius. And Asclepius was some form also of was a healer, and it has some relationship also to well, let's just stay there. So he was a healer and the god of healing for a period of 1,000 years, 500 before Christ, 500 after Christ. There were hundreds of temples and people would go to the temple of Asclepius for healing. And they would go very often with physical problems to the temple and then engage in this technique of dream incubation, asking the god Asclepius for either a cure or a recipe. And based on the little votives and the longevity of the tradition, it worked very, very well. And lost its importance over time. But people would, even Plato and Socrates talked about going to the temple, dream, and then getting in the dream an answer to a problem that they had. So it's also one of the more well documented dream traditions in the world.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing. I'd love to ask you, one of the things we witness with mushroom practice is the more you affirm spirit, the more spirit gives you. And so when you notice the little things happening, the little threads and themes, we do a lot of group works because a lot of things, it's so subtle, but it's so powerful and a lot gets missed. But when you're called to speak to your experience, you catch all these things that were actually tiny, but really profound and communicating something very clearly to you. And the more you affirm it, the more things seem to happen. So does that happen with dream work too?
Yes, but in the dreams look like is the face we turn towards it is the face we get back. So if you're interested in dreams, you start having more dreams. And so when people say how I don't remember my dreams, it's 9 out of 10 times probably because you're not that interested. And that's okay. Yet when you start showing interest, you will have more dreams. And the Naskapi Indians in the northern part of North America, they noticed that when they followed up on the advice of the dream, either they followed up on the advice or they made some art, they would get better dreams and more dreams. And so it's not a one-on-one relationship, but if we're interested, we get more dreams. If we're wanting to have more help, we get more help. And I also described that in my book that I once asked the dream, do you want to tell anything to the readers? And then I had in the dream, I was in a company and they had a new female CEO who was very wise and very competent. And if you as an employee there wanted help, she was delighted to help you and give you support. If you wanted to figure it out on your own, it was equally fine, even if that would take 2 or 3 years. And I took that as also as a notion of there's help and support in the other world, but there is also free will. If you want to figure it out on your own, totally fine. And you're not going to be judged by this phenomenon. But if you want help, like the old saying, ask and you shall be given, you ask for help, you get help. And it's almost like you need to give a kind of an informed consent. And so if you say, I would like help, I would like to have more support is coming. And if you then follow up on the support, even if you don't totally understand it, but would say, gosh, I light a candle. Thank you for the support. I need more, better, or dumb it down. And then you get more. So I think that matches your observation with the mushrooms. And I think that basically we're relating to the same phenomenon, just in a slightly different infliction.
Mm-hmm. Another part of your story I loved and it resonated with mushroom practice definitely was, so many people bring such care and attention, especially to their journey in higher dose work and ceremony, and they bring their intention. And it was much like one of your pilgrimages, and you had a dream and you said it was actually quite disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that happens all the time as people, think they're going to have this amazing mystical experience. And it's like, I talk to a cactus, and it's like, not what they expected. And they leave disappointed. So, however, part of the beauty of the integration work we do is oftentimes what was disappointing, when you peel back the layers and you unpack it all, you see the gold in it and go, that was actually exactly what I needed. It's not what I wanted, but it's what I needed in that moment. So can you talk a little bit about that with dream work?
Yeah, I love that you share it. And I so appreciate it. From a different tradition, you have very similar observations and experiences. And I have come to see over time that the dream provide is you visit the most competent, wise therapist possible. It's absolute this unbelievable wisdom and intelligence, and it's so far beyond us that it will give us exactly what we need, but the little ego is just not always able to see the angle, to understand it. Just and of course I fall prey to that too. So in the book I describe this example of, gosh, that sounds boring, and then I puzzled on it. It's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have asked for something better, and it does that. And so also now that my book is out for a little while, and I sometimes hear people say, yeah, I like the technique, but it doesn't work for me. Sometimes I look at what kind of question did you ask, and the other time it is you give. I understand that sometimes the answer is not that easy. You talk to a cactus. Why would that be helpful? This dream is very mundane, or I don't understand it. And now I think, I maybe should have written more about it, or have more of a warning in it. It works, but take the dream and talk to someone else, share it with someone, look at it the next day, puzzle on it, because you have just visited the most intelligent therapist that exists. And if you don't get it, don't blame the therapist. You can come back and say, gosh, it's really difficult to dumb it down for me. I'm thankful that you think so highly of me, but no. But work on it.
We have seen a similar thing. And thankfully, people, if they come around and face it and have some humor in it, it's very, very opening and profound for them, because sometimes we've seen that too with people, and everybody around them is having these profound experiences and lots of growth and healing and shifting, and nothing is happening for them, and they're very perplexed why this is. But sometimes the medicine not saying anything is saying something. It's actually saying a lot. And oftentimes when people are really, in the cases when that's happened, what the medicine is usually saying is you have taken too much from the relationships in your life, from the planet, and you're not giving enough back. And so it's kind of like, I can't dance with you if you don't stand up to dance, right? And so it can be really, really profound. The disappointment can be very healing in of itself. So, thank you.
That's also an interesting notion that maybe it doesn't speak because you're not in the right psychological condition to start really engaging. You're maybe to take too much and not give enough. Yeah, I've sometimes seen it also with people just asking the wrong question. or a question they're not ready for. And then there's also a silence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's if a person would ask, "How do I become rich?" Maybe the dream will tell you, but most likely a better way of asking is, "How can I give my gift to the world and earn money with it?" Then you're more aligned with what the universe is doing by itself. And otherwise, it's also too much. It's not the genie in Aladdin that just gives.
Right.
It's a wise therapist who gives you exactly what you need.
Right. Right. Beautiful. My next question I had for you, you and I both had big geographic moves last year. And I have noticed an immense difference in my dream life, in my spiritual life, in my new latitude where I am now. So I'm so curious to hear your take on dreaming and place, if sense of place matters. I've certain traveled to places where I had incredible, powerful dreams over others. So have you found that to be true?
Yes, and I think that in asking the divine or the universe or spirit for a dream, almost all traditions would travel to a sacred place, whether it's the top of the mountain, a certain cave, a temple, the grave of a saint, and so the notion that place and dreams are very connected seems to hold true throughout history. And of course, every city, every place has its own particular spirit. And I just feel that the energy of the city is different than where I used to live. And dreams have, but I think that dreams in my case have especially worked on or have been engaged with differences in culture between the Netherlands, where I grew up for a big part, and the United States. Now I live in Mexico City, and I can see better some of the cultural shadows, and especially in how critical uh, um, the Dutch spirit can be, or how overly analytic it can be, and how I have still remnants of that in my own thinking. And this culture being here, I can better see, that's very money, like the US, money is way more important than here. You have a different money complex, or you have a different criticalness, or a different way of living life. So that's what it seems to be doing for me.
What language do you dream in?
English or Dutch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. My next question for you is around the things that disconnect us from our dream life. I was thinking back when I was preparing for our talk. I was reflecting back. I got a chance to be in a workshop with Michael Newton quite long ago, early in my career. And he is a regression hypnotherapist and wrote a lot on past lives and the life between lives. And our group at the time asked him, this had to be 25 years ago, what keeps people from being able to access their knowingness and their past life and their wisdom? And he said at the time, it's all of the toxins and synthetics that we put into our food, our physical bodies, our pharmaceuticals that we take, alcohol, drugs, cigarettes. And I can only imagine it's only increased in the last 25 years since he said that. So I would love to hear your take on, people who say that they can't dream or they don't dream. Do you see common things getting in the way of people being able to access their dream state?
Well, certain medication has an adverse effect on it, but sometimes people can't help it because they need it. But alcohol is not very conducive for dreaming. So if you would ask a question to the dream, I would recommend not drinking that night, especially if it's a big, important question. Treat it in a way. Some people will dream with alcohol, but you just don't fall into certain states of consciousness where dreaming is just more active. And I think in general, but it's the number one thing is just that our culture has a bit marginalized dreaming in the other world. That's become so. If you can only what exists is what I can see, not even what I can feel, but just what I can see and measure. So what I can feel, what my intuition tells me, I have become a bit orphans. And so I think just interest, curiosity will save a lot of these problems. And of course, we've built all kinds of other defense mechanisms towards the depths of our being, out of fear, not knowing how to deal with emotions. Because when I was cut off from grief, I was also cut off from big parts of my own soul.
Absolutely. That beautifully leads into my next question. So I am a huge fan of Michael Meade for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And Malidoma Sodme. And so I know you have studied and we're close friends with Malidoma. I'd love for you to share anything you'd like about them and their significance to your process and your life. And also how dream work is actually soul work. Right?
Yeah.
At a certain point. Yeah.
Yeah, the soul manifests in dreams. But to start with Malidoma Somé, he died a couple of years ago. He was a really great African shaman, came from Burkina Faso, and was initiated in his tradition. And his name means friend of the stranger or friends of the enemy. And so the notion in that culture was that you get a name that reflects your purpose in life. So every time you would be named or called, you would be remembered that you were a friend to the stranger, and therefore you needed to do a certain thing in life. So he was sent to the United States and brought the African spiritual wisdom to the United States and the world. He wrote a beautiful book. It's a little autobiography that I highly recommend. It's a fun read. And he's just a really great storyteller and conveys a very kind, deep African shamanistic view. And very often we think about Asia with Buddhism and Hinduism as these deep spiritual, very intelligent traditions. But the African tradition is also equally interesting and wise. It has just not often been documented. And so they don't have, and we don't have a lot of written books from these people. But these African shamans also journeyed, came across deep insights, and have a life-affirming tradition in which people come into the world with a gift, and that we are supposed to deliver this gift to our community, and how that works. So he also throws the bones, like they call it in South Africa, or does divination. And as I came from South Africa, dreams did lead me back to go to South Africa and encountered the indigenous shamans, Sangomas, and they said, "Oh, we want to teach you this. You're actually one of us. We need to teach you this tradition. You're you're also a healer who can consult the bones and is in touch with the ancestors. And I had initially a bit of a resistance to doing that, but being there enough, one of them took me and said, "Now it's enough. We'll start." And so we started. He did teach me. Others did teach me. And then I crossed paths with Malidoma, who also said, "I think I want to teach you the divinations." And then I spent in a year and a half, about 30 days with him, spread over that, in which he did teach me how you read the shells and bones, just do this African divination, the stories, the worldview behind it, the rituals, and then I learned that from him. So I'm deeply indebted for that part in my life to him, and he has been a great friend and a mentor that way. And at the Jung Platform, we have a couple of really interesting programs where you can see him live. There's a lecture or a talk, something as the healing and the ancestors. You get just 75, 90 minutes. This poetic storyteller, and with deep African wisdom that a lot of people really like. It was in Salt Lake where we did it, and people were crying in the audience because it was it's so beautiful. But yeah, he has been really important because connected me back to my African roots. He spoke both English and was deeply connected, so he could really teach me. And now I still once in a while throw the stones or the bones for people and do that tradition. Yeah.
Love it. What a gift. Oh, love it.
What do you like about Michael Mead? What speaks in his work to you?
I discovered his work through mythology. So because of my Greek, as a child, I grew up reading mythology and falling in love with it. I still love mythology and studying it. So yeah, I think it was originally through his mythic work. But I love him, and he always just speaks to the moment to me. Yeah. So often something will be up in our community, something will be going on, threads and themes, and he's just, he's speaking to that. So
yeah, he's also such a great storyteller. It's just a joy to listen to his voice, his rhythm, his poetic style, and his ability to weave the depths of mythology with current affairs and see how actually current life is an unfolding of archetypes of mythology. And I also deeply admire and love his work and himself. He's a great person as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can feel that in hearing him. Yeah, beautiful. So my final question, which is something Michael speaks to often, actually, is your genius. You know, our innate genius that we all possess. You know, so many people that I work with come to practice, and that's one of their intentions. They're like, I feel so far from myself. I'm so disconnected from who I am, and I don't know me. Mm-hmm. And so part of their practice is to get back to that remembering who they really are. So can you talk about what is innate genius and how can our dreams help us access that?
Yeah. So this is also an old indigenous notion, or in the Greek tradition, they called it the daimon. And in some African tradition, it's called the divine twin. In the West, it has morphed somewhat in a spirit guide. But then worldwide, there's this notion that when you come into the world, a being comes with you that knows about your life path, the tasks that you're about to accomplish, some problems that you will face. and it's there to support. And it's not only there to support it; it's also an embodiment of your talent. So your genius will a basketball genius. Basketball player will have a genius who's in some form of an athlete, and a mathematician has a mathematical genius. And when in the Greek tradition, they said happiness is the word for it would be eudaimonia. And that would be when you and your diamond, when you and your genius are standing together, you'll be happy. Or even better translated, probably you will flourish. When you are flourish, when you're in the flow of things, there's a particular form of happiness. And the good news is we all have a genius. So not only people with an IQ of 140 or more, or very special people. Now everyone has a genius, and maybe even multiple genius. And it could be just that they can cook a nice meal, or they're funny, or they have they can do mathematics. And it's about figuring out a little bit who and what is my genius. And very often we can find it in the things we love to do, or where our woundings lie, because the genius will be in the wound. And the wound comes from this old French word blessure, which is both wounding as blessing. And there's also where you started with somewhat the wounded healer, where we're wounded, we find medicine for our own wound, and then that person is qualified to go into the world to distribute their medicine to others. But you have to first cure, or at least for a big part, cure your own wound before you start helping other people. But everyone has a genius. And coming back to the dreams, we could ask if people are stuck, or with the same with the intention of the mushroom journey. You could say, genius, I know you're around, but I have no clue who you are, and maybe you can, and then set an intention. What can I do to help you? What would you like to do in life? And or show me the first step that I can take for us to reconnect. Those especially work well in dreams, because dreams are much shorter periods than a mushroom journey. In the mushroom journey, you can set your own question first, and then maybe Genie shows up, and then you can ask it another question, because due to the time frame and the lucidity that you to a certain extent have. But you could ask your dream. So if people don't know what to do, ask a question, Genie, what would you like to do? And then you have a dream, and then just do it. Whatever it is, even if it's like I normally never like to work to plant a tree. I'm going to plant a tree, because maybe it will lead you somewhere. Maybe you're not a yard person, but it will help you in some form. Probably it will be a little closer to home, because it also wants to realize itself through you. So it will be like, yay, you asked me, well, I'm going to tell you. It's going to be excited. So for people that listen to this, and I think that's it's a good time that they can ask tonight their dreams a question. They've been immersed in this now for an hour. Ask a question, whether it is, do you have something to tell me, or do you want to show me something, Genie? Or another question is, that works very well, is what is one type of food that's good for me to eat? Or what's one thing I can do to love myself more deeply? Those the last two are questions that have shown very high responses to people. And yeah, so I want to encourage people, hang out with your genius. And one way to connect with it is in the dreams. Another is through the mushroom journey, or you pay attention to day-to-day life. You will find him somewhere, or her somewhere as well. But ask the question tonight.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I found that absolutely to be true, that spirit loves to be seen, loves to be recognized, and is often trying really hard to get our attention. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in that line that it tries to get our attention, a lot of our symptoms is actually the genie trying to get to us. So it's our anxiety or our depression that should not be cut off or immediately medicated. Sometimes medication works, but very often the anxiety is the genie telling us, hey, something is up, or we're in the wrong relationship, and you don't feel well because the situation is not well. And so symptoms are another way that the genius talks to us, but it requires a little bit in poetic quality and symbolic quality to listen to it, just like dreams or mushroom journeys. And then we reconnect with our own soul. Our own soul, even this life, is doing the same as the dream or as the mushroom journey, but on a slower pace. And the mushroom journey is so much more less dense. So these spirit moves in a different way, but this reality has the same. And but it's more difficult to talk to the spirit in this reality, but equally possible.
Can't blame it. Oh, well, thank you so much. I want to share your beautiful book with everyone. I highly recommend it. I've loved reading it this week. I've had dreams most nights, not surprisingly, since reading it. Beautiful, beautiful. Can you share a little bit about where to find you and a little bit more about what is Jung Platform for folks that are new to it?
Yeah. Well, the book is easy to find on Amazon and some other large distribution networks. People can find me on my website, machielklerk.com. You probably have to put that in the show notes.
We will.
And or on social media, Instagram, Facebook. I post one or two ideas every week. And Jung Platform is this online company where we provide courses on psychology that takes into account another world. We have programs with Malidoma Somé, the African shamanic tradition as another world. We have Jungian courses on dreams or archetypes, synchronicity, but also a Jungian perspective on the tarot and the I Ching as divination systems. But also through this depth psychological lens, how can you read the symptoms in narcissism or codependence? And we have now 200 programs there to help people connect to the depths of their own being, guide them on their path from the perspective that we've been talking about today.
Amazing. And do you maintain a personal practice too? Do you do practice and retreats?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I have a very small private practice where I work with people that are interested in psychotherapy from this tradition. We've in dream work, and I once in a while do the African divination for people, and it's a very helpful tool to just get really great insights. You could see it as another form of a journey, and people can just contact me for that through my website. And I will have a workshop at Esselen this summer in early September on the West Coast. Yeah,
that's one of my soul homes.
Oh, it's a nice place, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you again so much for being with us today. Thank you, all of you, for listening. We'll put all of Machiel's contact in the show notes and as well as the book link to pick that up. So thank you all for being with us. We'll see you next time. And thank you again, Machiel.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Microdosing for Healing podcast. Are you ready to take the next step? Please visit us at microdosingforhealing.com to access our free Microdosing 101 workshop. In it, you'll learn more about our diverse community, our supportive group programs, and discover if earth medicine practice might be right for you. See you in the next episode.